Welcome to another Cuke Audio Phone Chat. I'm DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths crossed his and anything else that comes to mind. Today's guest is Jack Elias. And Jack was an old Shunryu Suzuki student. He was at the first practice period at Tassajara. And he and I have stayed in touch. He's a hypnotherapist up near Seattle. And you can learn more about him by going to findingtruemagic.com. And he's got a book of that name too. And anyway, he's going to be talking to us about that, about his experiences with Trungpa and that Sangha, and how he got there and how he got to Send Center. So we'll go right into that after a pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, feel free to hit pause and meditate for as long as you wish. And when you're through, hit unpause, and we'll hit the bell to end meditation, and we will all have meditated together, and we'll go right into our phone chat with Jack Elias.
Hey.
Hey, Jack. How you doing?
Hi. Good. Hi.
Great.
You're here. You're still here, and I'm still here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So how is everything there? How you doing?
We're in a very favorable situation. We're just quarantining at home. We get our food sent. We're in a very beautiful neighborhood. We have no problem spending all of our time together, so it's quite fortunate for
us. So what are you doing these days?
I am doing my work, and I'm doing everything online. It's actually quite luxurious. Don't have to get dressed or anything.
Yeah, I know. I know. I understand. So why don't you describe what your work is?
Okay. So, I bill myself as a hypnotherapist, but because of my Buddhist background, it turns out to be a very unusual approach. I haven't really ever investigated, but I have people tell me all the time that they've never encountered my approach, whether it be from their experience with psychotherapists or hypnotherapists or cognitive behavioral therapists, whatever. They usually say it's, different and quicker, and it's deeper, better results. And so the basis of it is taking the paradigm of hypnosis and kind of injecting it with the Buddhist notion. So I lost you.
Hey, Jack.
Yeah.
We got disconnected. Are you aware of that?
I wasn't until you rang me up again. So what's the last thing you heard?
You were saying that that you're a hypnotherapist, but the people who have uh, been your clients or whatever you call them have said they've never encountered anything like that. That's what Ed Brown said. Uh, one of my early podcast guests was Ed Brown, and
Oh,
he sang your praises and thought working with you was wonderful and really helpful.
no, that's sweet.
Yeah,
Well,
that was nice.
let me start over again, and you can edit it if you need to. So my approach when I encountered hypnosis, I saw that I could use it as like a front to present Buddhist insights. Um, so in hypnosis, they're all, they're big on, giving hypnotic suggestions, but they're also have these notions that there are certain people who are suggestible or more suggestible than others, and all this interest in suggestibility testing and stuff like that. And people get concerned about, what if I can't hypnotize somebody, or as a client, what if I can't be hypnotized? I get rid of all of that because I explain to people that it's all hypnosis all the time.
Well, once again, Skype hung up on us. I use Skype, I'm calling on his cell phone or maybe on his landline. And usually it's good, but it didn't work there. So I called him up, and now I'm calling him back on Facebook Messenger, and that works.
Right.
Hi there. Yeah, that's weird. Um, I have Skype hang up after an hour. That happens a lot, but I've
Uh-huh.
never had it hang up before, and it shows my connection's good. So anyway,
That's weird. That's weird.
yeah. So please
Are you
continue.
ready? I
Yeah.
can continue? Okay. So from my Buddhist studies, I recognized that um, language, and it says in some text, I don't remember where, but it doesn't use the word hypnosis, but essentially says that egoic thinking is hypnotic suggestions in so many words. And so people can readily understand that. Like many clients come in and they say, nothing's worked. Uh, I haven't been able to be hypnotized before. I don't know if you can hypnotize me. And I'll say, it's too late. Your problem is the hypnotic state. And they get it quickly, and then they immediately feel hopeful and energized because they've been given back a sense of agency. Because you're simply shifting the paradigm that you're being afflicted by things like diagnostic labels, that you have things, as opposed to recognizing that they're constructs that you're creating, or if you will, your subconscious mind is creating them. But the point is, they're activities. They're not things that are you can't escape from. It's activity in your consciousness, and you can change it. And so people immediately feel hopeful, and they get it, and then they're more cooperative. They don't have the doubt or the despair that it's not going to work, because whatever they come up with, I help them see that it's not a real thing, it's just a constructed thing. And that's why it goes quickly. And it's not, a lot of it is just conversational, like I'm saying now, but also there's various ways of playing with the mind symbolically. Like if somebody is having a recurring trigger, like every time they think of a memory, they get upset, or a person, they get upset.
Yeah.
I ask them, think about that person right now. And I wait a second or two, and I say, thinking about them? And they say, yeah. And I say, and are you having that emotional, intense feeling? And they say, yeah. And I say, okay, how do you know you're thinking about them? And most people, they go, their eyes crossed, and they get very confused. And they say, well, just because I feel it. And I say, well, yeah, I know you feel it because you're experiencing. But how do you know that's what you're experiencing? And often it's very difficult for people to recognize how they're accessing data. And then, I make the space for them to struggle with it because maybe they can explore their own mind and discover it. But at a certain point, if they don't, I'll say, well, how do you know you're thinking about this person and not thinking about a ham sandwich? And then usually
And
they'll get
not
it
thinking
without
about what?
a ham sandwich. And then it becomes obvious to them, not all of them, but most of them, they go, oh, because I see it. And I say, yeah, simple. You know it's your father or whatever because you see him. It's not a ham sandwich. And then we explore how the visual representation is constructed. Like, is it a snapshot or a movie? Is it black and white or color? Where is it located in relationship to you? And there's no right answers and there's no right methodology. You just play with the constructs. Like typically if it's upsetting, it's right in their face and it's a color movie. So just by saying, don't change anything about it, about the content, but move it 100 feet out in front of you and notice what happens to your feeling. Invariably they go, oh, I don't feel so upset. I say, notice that. Now change it to black and white. Notice, what's your feeling? I say, it's kind of gone away. I say, notice that. And then now put that picture or movie in a catapult and throw it 100 miles behind you. What happens to your feeling then? And then well, it just seems irrelevant. So what people learn, the reason why it goes quickly is people learn that their hypnotic assumption that the problem is in the content, and they kind of have to struggle with the content, which is inherently futile because it's over with, it's a past thing, it doesn't exist anymore. So they think they're stuck with it. But what they learn from this, from direct experience, is it's not the content that's the problem, it's how they code it. And that they can do these simple, playful, theatrical things, code it in a different way. It's not always the same for everybody, but it's pretty high statistical probability is that if they change it to black and white from color and put it way behind them, all their emotional problem just goes away.
Now, wait a minute. You said it. They put. Then they. Did you say coast?
Code. How you code it.
How you code it? What do you mean by that?
How you store the data.
Well, how would I know how I store data?
Well, if I ask you to think about your father, and you say, yeah, I'm thinking about my father, I say, how do you know you're thinking about your father? And you say, well, because I see him.
Oh, I see. So you mean I'm storing a picture.
Yes.
Oh, you mean just look at what I think of when I think of my. Well, when I think of my father, it's like when I think of Suzuki Roshi. I got great teaching from him, so that's what I think of.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
I know. I was
You
very
get to
lucky.
keep that. Yeah,
Uh,
you get to keep that.
yeah. uh, yeah.
But that's, the kind of the general mistake that we make subconsciously is that we store memories because pictures are worth 1,000 words. So we store memories as pictures in movies.
Mm-hmm.
But pictures in movies are very engaging. And so the hypnotic process is you don't store them. It wouldn't even be so bad if they were like a two-dimensional picture. But what we do is we store them as little virtual reality 3D theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And then in order to remember it, we get sucked into it, and it's like we're there and it's happening to us over again, which is why it can be traumatic. Because you literally hypnotize yourself, transported yourself to be in it as if it's happening all over again. and that's the problem with the coding. So you learn that you don't doesn't have to be a 3D movie. You don't have to be in it. Doesn't have to be in color. Doesn't have to be a movie at all. You could just keep it as a story in prose in a book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so then your your neurology is not triggered by it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's so simple, and that's why it goes very fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate what you say to things I do. That's good. But I think I like the catapulting something behind you.
Yeah.
That's good. Turning it from color to black and white, that's novel. Uh,
And
uh,
well, for some people, it could be the reverse. Like I say, it's not all set in stone. A few people, it might be more intense in black and white than in color. But all you do is you just simply try things and ask them what's their response, and then you just go on their feedback. You don't have to know anything in advance.
yeah. Wow. Uh, hmm. How long have you been? What's this called again?
Well, what I call my work is transpersonal hypnotherapy. Um, so that's what it's called. I advertise that I do transpersonal hypnotherapy and NLP.
NLP, neuro linguistic programming.
Yeah, neurolinguistic programming is just a derivative of hypnosis. So, but a lot of, it was very, very good branding and packaging. So I include that because it draws people. But it's definitely, it's essentially hypnosis.
God, I remember some stuff just reading about NLP. One of the things had to do with the eyes. What was it?
Oh yeah, eye accessing cues. Like you can tell how a person is accessing, like are they seeing pictures? Are they listening to sounds or voices by where their eyes go?
I remember that.
If
And if the eyes are looking up, uh, they're remembering something or what?
if they're looking up to their left, they're remembering visually. If they're looking up to their right, they're constructing visually.
I would imagine there. You know how some people are right brain, some people are left brain, and then some people have that reversed. I think.
Yeah, the same thing I said about the other playing with the other stuff is you don't have to be concerned about knowing in advance. You just watch what they're doing and then ask them, what are you experiencing right now? And that's
Yeah.
how you find out. It's so simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's neat. Uh, that sounds very useful. I can, one thing I can relate to, um, if something's bothering me, when I don't know what, but, uh, well, one thing I do, if something's like in the morning, I find my first mood, I go, so, the moods are different. If I find I have a dissatisfied mood, I just say, it doesn't matter. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
uh, and the thing, I just tell myself it doesn't matter. Just look at whatever is, and it'll whatever was bothering me tend to go away. Um, but I say the same thing if I feel really good. I go, it doesn't matter. Don't cling to it. Just
Right.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
Let it go. And
Yeah.
if I find that, like, if I'm doing zazen or meditating or whatever, and uh, that there's, let's say I'm bothered or not even bothered, just caught up in thinking about something, I'll fly out to a spot, what way out in the solar system, and just look back and where the sun is just this tiny dot. I'm way out there in space by myself, and I just sit there.
Exactly. That's another option of what you could do.
um,
There are
yeah.
infinite options, infinite options.
What about uh, heavy grieving? I mean, I have had things. I've tended not to be real bothered by things in my life. I've been real lucky. I haven't had a lot of depression or anything, but when I have, I realized, oh my God, this is what all these bothered people and then I'm filled with sympathy and I go, oh my God,
Yeah,
yeah, that's terrible. And some things take just seemed to me have taken time.
yeah,
Nothing I could do did anything. I just had to wait a while.
right.
Uh, but maybe with the right technique, I could have gotten rid of them. Uh,
Well, the main problem is uh, that we have been programmed, most of us programmed in our childhood to make a false and arbitrary connection between what we experience and our worth.
and our worth.
Our worth,
Yeah.
our right to have self-respect and love and to expect love and respect from others. So one of the big things, I just had a client today say, uh, if I let myself feel grief, that means I'm weak, and people will judge me. So people grief is just a natural response. It's a non-dual response. There's no self in actual grief. It's just organic movement. And if you let it moves and then come back to the natural state of inherently joyful being. But if you block it, then you just keep creating and prolonging unnecessary turmoil because you keep injecting these stories that this means there's something wrong with me and the universe is against me and life is shit and I'll never have another love again, all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
feed off of the natural healthy grief that is just a sign that you are part of life and you value being alive and you value engaging in life and you don't lose that when the object disappears. You get to keep that and move on and engage life, in the next moment.
Right.
But we're trained not to think that way. We're trained not to recognize that.
Right.
We're trained to take it personally, which is what you're antidoting. You say it doesn't matter. Basically, you're saying I don't have to take this personally,
Yeah.
and you
Um,
move on.
the the last uh, podcast I did, I try to do one every week with someone from the related to the Zen world, preferably someone uh, like you who was back there in
Uh-huh.
the Suzuki Roshi days, but not always. One day a week is life in Bali, and that's been a lot of fun. And the woman I talked to, the last one, and it went up just Friday. Uh, are you in Friday? Let me see. Yeah, you're in Friday.
Yeah, yeah.
And it went up at 1 in the morning your time.
Right.
Uh, uh, is She's a retired doctor and a painter, and I know her through Vipassana retreats here, which is
Okay.
I've done
Right.
a number of them, uh, and the type of meditation they use here is just like Zazen. They do it. I can't remember. It's called Matase or Malase or something. It's out of Burma, and it's just focusing on your hara and your in and out breath. God, it's just like Zen, and they're usually the approach of what we call the guru, the monk or nun leading it, is there's philosophical differences, but I don't care about that.
Uh-huh.
I like them. They're real no nonsense. Anyway, I know her from that, and so I did a what I call a phone chat with her, and I asked her how she got into it, uh, and because she's still a Hindu and she has sort of Hindu responsibilities because of her position in society, and she that you know the three big events in modern Bali history are the virus that's happening now and the two bombings. Uh,
Oh,
and she was a victim of one of the bombings, and
yeah.
it wasn't the one where 200 people got killed. It was one where uh, just 20 people got killed, and that was in two sites. The one she was in, just two people got killed, but they had to jump out of the window of the second story of the building. It was the first story. There was so much destruction. But she said it took her a year to recover from that.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and she said after a year she was all right. Um, what? So what would you do with somebody who is in a heavy trauma
Yeah,
like that?
yeah. So again, when something is vivid, are you still there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, because my screen went blank. Um, our subconscious mind determines reality by vividness, not by truth. So if something vivid happens,
Yeah.
subconscious mind considers it to be true.
Oh, yeah.
And but so we help people recognize it's not true, it's just vivid. And again, the fact that it's vivid, and I don't mean just vivid like visually, but like powerful sensations and feelings moving through the body, you still don't have to buy the thought to take it personally. You can still practice recognizing its objects in awareness, which
Yeah.
is what you do in the morning. You just recognize just an object in awareness, plenty of space to move on. But in addition, you also add in, uh, like, going into the going out into the cosmos and having the sun be a tiny speck. Basically, you introduce space, distance. You make
Mm-hmm.
the point. You make the point that the actual past is over with. You're not suffering because of the bombing. You're suffering because the massive creative ability of your consciousness is creating a facsimile of the bombing.
Mm-hmm.
And like a 3D virtual reality movie, like I said before, and you are habituated to getting sucked into those.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we set up a staging device where we and I mean literally like a theater. You start by having the person imagining they're sitting in a wonderful, comfortable seat in the theater, and they're just nothing. The movie hasn't started yet, and so there's like just a pleasant photograph on the screen or something. And then once they're grounded there, feeling safe, you have them float up out of their body into the control booth and see their other self still sitting down there in the seat.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have the sense that they're the master projectionist and they have this state-of-the-art console and they love doing it, and that they're about to run a movie of the event, but
Mm.
they're going to run it in natural speed, but in black and white. And one of the things about this state-of-the-art theater is that if it's necessary, you can move the screen back. You can move it back as far as you need to move it back so that neither the you in the seat down below nor the you in the projection booth gets sucked into the movie. So you stay dissociated from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And If necessary, you can build in other devices. Like you can say, we're going to, just to make sure, we're going to surround you with a force field or a plexiglass bubble so that it's impossible for you to fly out into the movie. And then I'll say stuff like, now as the projectionist, projectionists, they run these movies, over and over again, no matter what a great movie it is. They have a certain kind of boredom because they've like watched it 50 times. So you want to have that attitude, You're not going to be surprised by anything that's in this movie. You've watched it many times, but you're going to be interested because you recognize it's an example of the human dilemma. And by studying it, you can increase your wisdom and your compassion.
Mm.
And so just have them run it through, and then when it's at the end and the traumatic stuff is over and it's kind of things are somewhat normalized, you freeze frame on that and let me know. And then I just wait, and they're doing it. I might interject. Remember, stay in the seat, stay in the booth, and remember, you can move the theater way, way, way far away so that it's easy to stay where you are,
mm-hmm.
and breathe and feel safe and relaxed in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And this is educating their subconscious mind to change the way it relates to that data. To change the physiology that it generates as it accesses that data. And then when they say, okay, I'm there, like they're a freeze frame at the end of the movie, then you say, okay, now when I'm going to tell you what you're going to do next, but don't do it until I tell you to do it. So we're dropping all the force fields and all the screens. And when I tell you to, you're going to fly into that freeze frame. And as soon as you do, it's going to burst into living color, living sound, but it's going to go backwards. The whole movie's going to go backwards in like a second and a half, like just, and you're going to feel yourself moving backward. Everybody else is moving backwards. You're in it, but you're rapidly moving backwards. Everything's sound is backwards, and like a second and a half, and then open your eyes and be here. Now, fairly often people don't know if they actually were able to do it, so I just pick up at the freeze frame. And you don't have to go back to the beginning. I said, let's just fly into the freeze frame again, backwards, feel yourself moving backwards, etc. Typically, after 3 times of doing that, they really had a sense of embodying that and doing the instructions. They open their eyes, and then you say, now remember the incident. And they are quite surprised. They go, okay. I said, what are you experiencing? And they said, not much, nothing. It's just, it's a very tragic event. But they're not hypnotizing themselves to be in it anymore. So it doesn't take 10 years to get over PTSD if you know what to do.
That's good. Yeah.
Now, you might have to do that whole thing repeatedly. Like for a phobia, it usually just takes 10 minutes. Do it 2 or 3 times. For PTSD, which can be more complex, more triggers, you might do it for a whole session, maybe another session. But the point is, you're training the subconscious mind to recognize it has the freedom and the ability to relate to the data differently, and that it has the right to do that because the actual past is over with. It has no prestige. You're only dealing with what your mind is doing, and your mind has a right to change what it's doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you were to ask that woman, I wouldn't be surprised. People who get over trauma do this sort of thing unconsciously. A typical comment that a person might say, if you say, gee, your friend is still suffering with this, but you got over it. You were in the same battle together or something. And they'll just kind of go, I don't know, I just kind of put it behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And they think they're being metaphorical. They don't recognize they're being literal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They say that again.
because that's a common phrase, they think they're being metaphorical. I put it behind me, no significance there, just a common phrase. They're being literal. They unconsciously, they literally took the data and put it way behind them, such that it didn't bother them. You see, so it's literal. It's literal.
That's interesting. Well, I think she was. She saw it in terms of karma, and
Sure.
she said she doesn't have any grudge against the suicide bomber or the people who did it. She doesn't, she just sees it as their karma, and it was her karma to be there. And she's mainly concerned. She mainly wants to continue waking up more.
Yeah.
So she's on a pretty good path to get over something like that. But she did say it took her a year. But that's what got her into Vipassana meditation, and mainly the Hinduism she was involved with here was a lot of it was really shamanism, which is Bali's. I call Hinduism. I call voodoo Hindu. Oh yeah. What about people wanting to change a habit? What about smoking? That's one of the hardest habits to change.
Yeah, yeah. Most people will stop smoking after one session, up to 3 sessions. The main thing is with anything. I also work with a lot of people who are working the 12-step program, and there's a lot of good in the program, but it would be more effective if they understood that the self is non-existence, but not in some fancy philosophical way, but in the way you describe your morning. If they recognize none of it's personal, they're just working with habitual patterns. So you
Yeah.
can, in that way, instead of, as soon as you keep calling yourself an alcoholic, you're keeping yourself tied to the shame, which keeps initiating the behavior. So if you drain out the shame and you frame these experiences as just passing phenomena and it's not about you, then you can turn more of your attention and focus to reconnecting with the sense of your natural healthy being and what you might call meditation.
Yeah.
But back to the smoking is most problems are, well, all problems really, since it's all, none of them exist. They're all activities. They're being created. So if something is purely a problem, you wouldn't keep creating it. So there are no pure problems. The reason people are afflicted with ongoing problems is because there's no such thing as a one-sided coin. The suffering part of it, they're very aware of because that's vivid and it engages their subconscious. The vividness engages their subconscious so much that they have a blind spot to the other side of the coin. So effectively, they're living life as if there were such a thing as one-sided coins. And they're not relating to the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that every problem is a solution, which is why you hold on to it. It's serving you in some.
How is smoking a solution? I can certainly see that there's a positive side to smoking. I mean, there's not only sometimes smoking can be unpleasant, especially in dry weather. I found out if you're in a low humidity situation, it's not near as pleasant. The higher humidity, the better it is. I've never heard anybody say that, but I sure noticed it. And I lived on the coast, and I liked going to Death Valley, so I'd really, I mean, I could hardly smoke in Death Valley. It was horrible.
Right.
But sometimes cigarettes would be so good, and sometimes I could just keep smoking and smoking, and I just, but that's one, one side. It could be positive, but the other thing is that the mental effect of smoking, I really think, is incredibly good. It focuses the mind. I don't think there's any drug like it, like nicotine. And look at the number of thinkers and writers uh, who have smoked constantly while they were working. Gregory Bateson said he calculated he'd smoked enough cigarettes to line them up and go to the moon and back. Uh, but anyway, we don't need, you know, it's not. It's not. The thing is that it's got so many negatives, horrible
Yeah.
negatives.
Yeah.
Uh,
So the positive, that's a couple of the positive, that's a couple of the solutions, like keeps me focused or just the enjoyment. Also, it it underpins the personality. Like when I have people, uh, I say, let's imagine that we are successful here and you never smoke again. And just take some time to imagine what's that like. And immediately they start coming up with the reasons why they don't want to give it up. Like they think, well, I won't know what to do with my hands, or I won't know how to connect with people. So these are all the secondary gains. So if you want to help someone quit smoking easily, you have to replace new ways of meeting those secondary gains. And then they'll easily let the smoking go.
mm-hmm.
You know, plus I will reframe the hypnotic suggestions that everybody gives themselves without question. Like people say, you know, well, it relaxes me. And I'll say, well, I understand that your emotional turmoil goes down, but we know that, you know, every puff is killing millions of cells. It's not relaxing you, it's encorpsing you. You know,
It's
corpses
what?
don't
It's
have
what?
encorpsing you.
Is that in corpse?
Yeah, it's a word I made up.
All right.
Okay? So,
Yeah.
of course, your emotions go down. It's because you're killing yourself, not because you're relaxing yourself. So, I want you from now on, when you think about uh, having a cigarette, I want you to think, I think I'll have a cigarette and encorpse myself.
Yeah, don't push that thought away.
Right.
Uh, um, I can remember times when I was smoking too much, many, many decades ago, and I thought, I don't want to do this. It's bad for me. I'd want to push that thought away, you know,
Right.
and not think about that. Uh, and I would think I just can't quit now. Uh,
Right.
uh,
But
hmm.
again, it's basically to avoid feeling. Like I've had people come to me who say they quit smoking for 6 months, a year, and then their dog died, or they got a divorce, and then they started smoking again. It's because it's a tool, it's a solution, it's a way of dealing with intense emotions that you have been programmed to believe you can't handle and that they're dangerous.
Um, there's there's well, smoking can be incredibly insidious. In a person can smoke and quit, and and have quit for, like you said, 6 months or a year, but they can restart for when there's not a traumatic reason or something like their dog
Yeah,
dying. It can be, I've noticed, because they decided they can have one, or they can have
exactly.
one
Yeah,
puff.
yeah.
And I have never seen anything like it. I've just seen just almost immediately they're back on it. And I had
Yeah,
that happen to me. I quit for
yeah.
2 years once. I quit for 1 year once. I've quit for six. I quit for every possible period of time, it seemed to me.
Right.
And then finally I quit. But what was that? Mark Twain said that there's 3 stages of smoking: smoking, quitting smoking, and quitting smoking. Uh, so what you want to do is both quit and quit.
Yeah. But you do that by giving yourself new resources, including helping people recognize it's a good thing to learn how to experience and hold your emotional life, as opposed to being get rid of the shame. That if you have emotions, show emotions, it means there's something wrong with you. That the shame is the root problem. You get rid of the shame, then everything else is much more workable.
One thing I've noticed is you were talking about the subconscious doesn't know what's real. It notices what? How did you state it?
It decides what's real according to what's vivid.
According to what's vivid, right. So I have really noticed that my subconscious, I don't know what's subconscious or conscious, I've just noticed that my mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what I'm imagining necessarily.
That's right.
In terms of how it's reacting.
That's right.
So I've noticed, for a long time, a tendency of mine to create scenarios that are not real. Like you might be worried somebody's going to do something, like something that's coming up, and you see the person doing what you don't want them to do, and then I shouldn't say you, and then I start feeling angry at that person, and then I go, David, that's not happening. That's not real, and then I can drop it.
Right.
But I've noticed a lot of stuff like that, and so one little thing I've used is just to go, not real, not happening, and that really just makes it drop away.
Yeah, that's great.
Another one I use is if I can is just tell myself shut up. If something starts, really I use that.
Okay, here's one I'll give you. People like this one is negative thoughts come. Have the attitude that you can look the source in the eye as if it was a person, and first of all recognize that all negativity comes from suffering. So when negativity comes, you give rise to some compassion. And from a compassionate place, you look the source in the eye and you say, are you too afraid to be kind and encouraging right now? And then just wait and notice what the response is.
Now, did you say all negativity comes from suffering?
Yeah, it comes from suffering.
So what sort of suffering?
Well, the general way I frame it for people to get a quick conviction is I ask people to think of a time, most people can, think of a time when your heart was full, you really felt happy to be alive, and just the tenderness of it all, and I was just, deeply moved by being alive. And they I say, can you get into that somewhat? And they say, yeah, okay. So now that you're in that, consider this. When you're in that state, was your first thought ever, who can I fuck over right now? Who can I make fun of? And of course, they laugh just like that. It's absurd. So I say, so therefore, that proves that when you see anyone trying to hurt somebody's feelings or make them feel bad or doing nasty things, they're confessing that they have a knife in their heart.
Yeah.
So you want to reframe your experience from your childhood. Those big, nasty people were not all powerful giant gods, and that their anger and whatever was a sign of how powerful they were. Now you can reframe that and recognize that that was a sign of how broken and suffering they were inside.
Right.
So that now, instead of getting afraid when you encounter something like that, you realize it's not big, it's small. It's a state of being small inside. And so you feel warmth, and you don't take it personally. You recognize It's a confession. They're confessing that they're in pain, fear, and confusion. It's not about you.
Yeah.
And so then you can ask with warmth. Because if you ask with a angry gotcha tone, then it's not going to work. like, gotcha, you're too afraid to be kind and encouraging. That's not going to work. It has to come from genuine concern. Are you too afraid to be kind and encouraging right now?
Yeah.
And not just to me, to yourself.
Yeah.
90% of the time, if you say that to a person, 90% of the time they just melt and start crying. It brings people back to their humanity. And in terms of internal voices, they immediately, or maybe after one or two challenges, they just go silent.
Mm.
Or they might say, yeah, I am too afraid. And then you can say, well, let's work on that. I care about you. Let's see what's going on there. What's there to be afraid of? So you either it evaporates or it creates a situation in which you can create a new dynamic that's relational and healing, a collaboration, as opposed to a war. So very powerful. I thought, I've been doing this work for 32 years, and this just came to me a couple of years ago in a training I was doing. It happens often that some new thing will come to me, but I was in this training, and I said, what happens if you ask, are you too afraid to be kind and encouraging right now? And it was very powerful for everybody, and two of the people was so moving for them that when they came to class the next day, they came with a gift. They had gone out and had a T-shirt made with that on it, and they gave it to me as a gift. So I have a T-shirt that says, are you too afraid to be kind and encouraging right now?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really wonderful.
Wow. Well, Buddha definitely encouraged people to relate to others with kindness. When you're answer kindly. And I think about that sometimes because I have a tendency to sort of, sometimes be short and sort of bark things at people. No, of course not. What are you talking about? Or something like that. And then I noticed that some people, it sort of hurts them,
Yeah.
Uh,
If they were from Texas, it wouldn't hurt them.
yeah. Now, people here, you don't do that with people here. People here are
No.
polite to each other. People here are polite with each other. Now, on the downside of that, that can break down, and the term run amok comes from Indonesia.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not from the Philippines. The first noble truth in Buddhism is often stated as suffering, right?
Right.
It's dukkha, which is a much more complex term than suffering. Right. The second noble truth is the cause of suffering. It's usually just stated as desire, I think. So I immediately think of, well, that just means kleshas. The kleshas, the thieves of the mind, Gary Snyder called it, greed, hate, and delusion. Mm-hmm. Not just looking at it as some sort of heavy, compulsive desire, but taking it from another point of view. Over and over, I've noticed wise people saying the key is don't discriminate. And then I think, don't discriminate. You can't live with that, discriminating. What I notice is something to deal with is that every second there's either I like this or I don't like this. I prefer this, and I can look back when when I was an infant, before I was even aware of the idea of a self, that I would experience things as sort of on a pleasant, unpleasant scale. And what that got down to was, do I like it or do I not like it? And I find if I can sort of turn that off or get beyond that's a more transcendent state. But the thing is, in terms of the intellectual understanding, it doesn't mean you're not discriminating.
Right.
It means you're not attached to it, or you discriminate in a practical way when you need to or when it comes up, but you're not enslaved to constant discrimination or desire. So, what do you have to say about that?
The I frame the general paradigm that I frame it in lately is I make a distinction between uh, and I don't merely say hypnotic thinking. In terms of confusion, I say that whenever we're involved in self-conscious thought, which we're involved in all the time, anytime you're in the soap opera of me and others, that is all moralistic thinking. And moralistic thinking is inherently deluded.
Define moralistic thinking.
Yeah, I'm about to.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll give an example because people will ask that question. I'll say, well, a simple example would be that moralistic thinking is not based on the actual law of cause and effect. For example, but it's based in belief. But when we become familiar with our beliefs, we forget that they're just beliefs. We relate to them as if they're the truth. And
Yeah.
the truth is based in causality. So it's moralistic thinking if you're, like something that's good in America could be bad in Indonesia. Exact same thing. If it were based in causality, there'd be agreement. But since moralistic thinking is not rooted in causality, it's rooted in just opinion, then it's wild and crazy. And it starts with, in childhood, there's the natural delusion of a child, like a child's notion of which is what you were just talking about, very rudimentary, precognitive even, that a child develops an attitude that the way the law of causality works is, I want it, so I should have it. And that's, I tell adults, I say, anytime you find yourself complaining or losing heart, you're operating as if the law of causality is, if you want it, you should have it. And then, so since you don't have it, you think the universe is against you. You get offended, you get angry, you lose heart, whatever. So that's moralistic thinking.
Uh-huh.
It's not bad, so don't like double up on me when I say moralistic thinking is deluded. I don't mean it's bad as in moralistically bad. I'm saying just science. Buddhism is a science of mind. It's scientifically, it's deluded because it's not rooted in causality. If you stay mindful of causality and that you get fruits according to the seeds you plant and how you take care of them, very simple. You can't get apples if you plant lemon seeds. But if you think, like, well, I only have lemon seeds, and I really want apples, so I'm just going to go ahead and plant this. This is the best I got. And then you plant them, you take care of them, and then you get lemons, you complain.
Yeah.
Because you're disregarding the laws of causality.
Yeah.
So if you stay with the laws of causality and something doesn't work out the way you want it to, you don't complain. You go, oh, this is an opportunity to learn. This is not what I expected. That's showing me I didn't understand how the laws of causality work in this context. So this is an opportunity to become more intelligent about how the way things work. I'm so happy.
Yeah. That's good. What it makes me think of is, Suzuki Roshi would frequently or now and then say, something about how he didn't believe anything or there wasn't
Yeah.
any fixed truth. But
Right.
then I thought once he said, well, karma, and karma is just causality.
Right.
Uh, uh, you know, karma is about as close as we can get.
Right. But the
Uh,
thing is, Westerners very prevalently, in my experience, translate karma into moralistic thinking, like
yeah,
it's
no kidding,
punishment. Yeah.
no kidding,
Yeah.
absolutely. People's idea of karma. Well, there's a media idea of karma, and there are some prominent Buddhists who have rejected the modern Western Buddhist idea of karma. It's because they're looking at the storybook idea of karma or a
Right.
mechanistic idea of karma. What it is. To me, one should not have a strict concept of what karma is, cause and effect. It's not, they'll say, well, that means if you kill somebody, you'll get reborn in your next life and then you will get killed. I mean, that's just
Yes.
idiotic. The way things work out are
Yeah.
beyond comprehension. Uh, oh, that's really, really interesting. All right, here's another one. Going to my father, you were talking about um, negativity being based in suffering. Now, if you look at, there's a very famous businessman now who clearly thinks, well, he's not a businessman, he's a con man.
Right.
He thinks a business deal is good if he gets enriched, but especially if the other person gets destroyed
Right.
or
Exactly.
something, right?
Yeah.
My father said he was into real estate. He said the only good business deal is one where both parties profit.
Yeah.
And also, he said it's important to see the good in people. And, he'd say, look, if you can't say something nice about someone, don't say anything. But seeing the good in people, I think you can say unnice things about people, but we shouldn't let it overshadow the good. The idea of redemption sometimes is lost. Like people will say, he's a jerk. I really don't like that. No, he acted like a jerk.
Yeah.
Does this sort of thing come up in your work?
Yeah. This is a while back. I came up with this notion about confusion, and it's for many years I was using it in terms of secondary gain, like we were just talking about with the smoking, or that a problem is also a solution, and people are confused about that. They don't realize that because the problem side is so vivid, they overlook the solution side, and so therefore they think the problem is an enemy, as opposed to realizing, no, the other side of it is it's my friend. But I don't remember how, but I started elaborating it, and I would explain to people that if you look at, everyone complains about confusion, and if you look at the word confusion, there's a big clue there, because nobody really considers the word. So if you take the word, you have con, which means with, and fusion, which means pour together. So you get a state of confusion anytime you pour things together that don't go together. And I have noticed that there's 13 types of confusion that create human suffering.
What? You have designated 13 types of confusion?
Yeah.
That sounds, in the old Hinduism and Buddhism in India, they had lists.
Yeah.
And you've created a list. My
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And the thing is that the first confusion, the root confusion of suffering from which all the other ones flow, is confusing being with activity. In other words, as a child, if you have defective parenting, you get very strong, vivid, repeated messages that your value as a person is a function of how you perform. And it's not strictly how you perform, it's what they think of it. So you learn that your value as a person is a function of what other people think of you, which is why everybody's so terrified of what people think of them.
Uh-huh.
And in therapy, for example, if you're trying to help people explore their past, it's often a block when they start to bring into awareness some of the things their parents did. They don't want to go any farther because they think if they really see it clearly, that it's going to break the love bond because they think there's a fusion there. So I explained to them, look, you can love your parents. They're just human beings, mortal human beings. Maybe they're not even here anymore. You can love the being. Their being is, we all have the same being. You can love the being and ruthlessly recognize the quality of activity that's harmful. And you don't have to hate the being because you recognize the harmful nature of the activity. So,
Mm-hmm.
like what your father was saying, as I would say, which could create a dilemma for people. They hear someone they respect say, don't think badly of people, but then they have, bad things they've experienced with people, and now they're caught. And what am I supposed to pretend it didn't happen? This is how you solve that dilemma: is recognize you can honor their being, which is beyond. Nobody owns being. So you can't have it as personal territory. It's a gift. You honor being and see the nature of activity for what it is. And you can give constructive communication to correct the activity. So how
Yeah.
it plays out in childhood is you spill your milk and your dad yells at you, dumb shit, you keep spilling your milk, you're an idiot, you're never going to amount to anything. Happens a lot.
Yeah.
So because a child before the age of 7 doesn't understand adults have inner lives. To them, adults are gods. Everything they do is an expression of the laws of the universe. So they can't think, gee, Dad's in a bad mood. He knows better than that. They think, oh, spilling your milk proves you're worthless and never going to amount to anything and don't deserve love. Law of the universe.
Mm.
That's why people suffer so horribly in this world, is because those things get locked in before the age of 7, which is around the age of 7 is when you start having a frontal cortex that's functioning and you can discriminate. Before that time, you just take all this stuff in, you're totally gullible, and it
Uh-huh.
becomes habituated.
Uh-huh.
And then most people, even when they get their cognitive faculty, then they can have a brilliant cognitive faculty, but there's a huge prohibition built into looking down into that stuff because you've become habitually convinced that you're disgusting and shameful and you better not look, because if you see, you're going to get swallowed up in a black hole, or other people might notice you seeing. You got to keep it under wraps, which is why you can have brilliant people with brilliant cognitive faculties creating magnificent things in the world, but then they get discovered in the back alley doing something disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my point is we do not, there's this thing about cancel culture these days.
Yeah.
And uh, uh, it's being, some are trying to use it for their own advantage. But basically, to me, it's not, canceling out the brilliant things somebody have contributed because of the disgusting thing they did in the back alley. You take the good from them, But you're not blind to the bad.
Right. You communicate. The way you get people to change is by triggering their sense that they are worthy because you are relating to them as if they're worthy. That sense of worthiness gives rise to healthy remorse that is the inspiration to make changes.
So, a thought that occurs to me is, how did you get into the path that you are now on, into the profession and the path and the life you're in?
Okay.
What led you there?
I would say that when I was in Boulder and 1980 in Boulder, so I had had 2 of my 4 kids by then, and I was really I wasn't really completely happy having to work, and, like as a grown up, as opposed to how I was at Zen Center, and but I felt like I had something to offer, but I was in sales. I was selling real estate mostly, also a little bit of and for a time insurance and gemstones with Bob, and but I always felt like the product was in the way, but I didn't know what to do about that. And then I took this NLP training that I noticed was happening, and I was probably the only person in there that wasn't a psychotherapist, and they were all being blown away by what was being presented. And for me, it was little bits and pieces of Dharma,
Mm-hmm.
and that we have been studying much more comprehensive way. So I thought, oh, I guess I don't have to feel bad anymore about being a college dropout. I actually chose a path of excellent education when I dropped out. So I thought I could do this, and it didn't require me going back to college for 10 years or whatever, spending $10,000. But I also had the thought, well, I can't just drop what I'm doing. I got a family to support. I can't just start a new career doing this kind of work with people. It could go under. So I didn't. I just kept going. I kept interested in such things. NLP is really a derivative of hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
It is hypnosis, just with different presentations. So anyway, I kept going, and in '86, my daughter Sarah was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension in August, and she was put on oxygen, and I had never heard of it before, and doctors said there's no treatment, and the oxygen isn't a cure. It's just to keep her comfortable, and you guys should move to sea level as soon as you can.
You guys should what?
Move to sea level. Move to sea level.
Oh, yeah.
More oxygen.
Yeah.
So in the blink of an eye, our whole life got turned upside down. Within 2 weeks, we were leaving Boulder and our teacher and our community, etc.
Now you're talking about you and
Robin.
Robin, right?
Yeah. And so we thought about East Coast, West Coast. So I was in Seattle, looking around, checking out Seattle, and Robin called me and said a friend of hers said you should go check out Orcas Island, which I did, and it was perfect, and everything fell into place. So we moved to Orcas Island, where Robin is. She's still there.
Oh, is that right?
When we split, she hooked up with a fellow, and they never married, but they had a long-term relationship. They had a daughter who's like 24 now, but unfortunately, it's been almost 3 years now. He got Alzheimer's, not Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh, oh, gee.
And so he died a couple years ago now.
Hmm.
So she's there. Her daughter is there with her. They're pretty much quarantined because of COVID on workers. But what happened was we were there, and we got there 86. We split up. I moved to the mainland in 88, and I thought, okay, now I'll check, see if there's a hypnotherapy training around, and there was in Seattle. So I signed up, and I went to it, and it became very quickly clear that I had a lot of familiarity with the principles, and the teacher was courageous and generous enough. He had me start teaching with him immediately. So I taught a portion of it and kept teaching with him for about a year and a half, and then he left town, and I took over, and I remade the course more completely in terms of Buddhist basis. And so basically I never just kept going after that. And of course, the irony was I was afraid to get started in 1980 because I thought I could lose everything. And so, of course, once I'd lost everything, I got started.
And so your daughter, I remember your daughter, you moved there with her.
Yeah, we moved there to be on sea level. I was her primary caregiver. And when I moved to Seattle, she came with me. And my other 3 kids stayed with Robin. And then she passed away in March of 92.
Mm.
And then at the end of the school year, my 2 sons came to live with me. And then about
How old were they then?
They, 92, 11 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
And Karen was 13. About 4 months later, she also came. So I was a single dad with 3 kids.
Ah.
And it all worked out. Pretty much worked out fine. It was, of course, very challenging, but I was able to work from home, which was invaluable, especially when Sarah was around.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always worked out of my home.
Mm. Mm.
But that's how I got involved, and I had no idea my good fortune. I had no idea how unique it was. Like my perspective on this, having it be colored by Buddhist understandings, turned out to be very unique, and so it's been a very fortunate experience. Like I thought, when I started, I thought, people are going to be bored, because I knew I had some people coming who were like PhD psychotherapists, like that, even psychiatrists, and they're going to be bored. They're going to tell me I don't know what I'm doing. That never happened. Everybody has always been blown away.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had a guy, an older guy. I was younger then. He was about my age now. So he came up to me on the first break with tears in his eyes. He'd been a hypnotherapist for 40 years, and he said, I've been looking for this all my life. So that, really touched me and helped me recognize that there's something very precious in the teachings that's really, really hard to find other places.
Mm-hmm. Mm. When did you meet Cece?
I met Cece. Robin and I, the official divorcing process finally ended around 92. We split up in 88, and I met Cece in 99.
Oh. Uh-huh.
I think that's right. 88 to 99. Yeah, I was single for about 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we very quickly connected, and we got married in 2000. That's where we're going on and on.
Mm. And
she had a son. He's in the Navy now. He's like 30, I think. But he was 8 when we got together.
Huh. Huh. And yes, and of course I remember she is from Fort Worth, my hometown.
Right. She's a Texan like you. That's right.
Yeah. Also, one thing about Fort Worth is it's called Where the West Begins. So
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, we're not Southerners. We're Southwesterners.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dallas are evil Southerners, and we are good, noble Southwesterners. Just remember that.
All right.
Tell her I said that.
Okay. I will.
Yeah, it's also called Cowtown.
Right, I think I knew that. But how's your sister? That reminds me you have a sister.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. She lives in Oakland. And we're in touch a lot. And yeah, she helps me a lot. And a lot of people help me a lot, actually.
Well, you deserve it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I always want more.
Of course.
And I've run into that with other people who are doing a lot of big projects that are more than they can handle. And I've seen some of them that use people and, would burn people out and stuff.
Right.
So I'm careful not to do that. Gratitude, that's it. Just keep thanking. And some people, have so much to contribute or volunteer or whatever. Some people, man, just keep going. Oh, wow. But I want to move back to Boulder. What were you doing in Boulder, Jack?
I was studying with Trungpa.
Yeah. And tell us about that.
I remember after dinner at Zen Center once sitting, there were just a few of us with Roshi, and he was playing with his fork. And he said, I think somebody's coming. Maybe no one will be left at Zen Center. And then he laughed.
Oh, you were there at the table when that happened?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's in Crooked Cucumber. Yeah. Maybe I got it from you.
Maybe. I mean, I definitely was there right next to him when he said that.
Uh-huh.
So we didn't know what that meant, but then I don't know how long it was, but, Trungpa Rinpoche came. We all sat around, and I don't know, you probably came with us, but about 6 of us or 8 of us after the talk, we went out and got a bunch of beer.
No, I was at Tassajara at that point.
Oh, you missed that. Oh,
but,
okay.
But I spent time with him. I spent time with him a number of times in the city. I didn't at Tassajara when he came. Alan Marlowe did. Spent a lot of time with him. I don't remember. I mean, I helped serve them in the dining room. Dia served them. Diane.
Yeah.
And I was there, but I got to know him later. I said hello to him, and we remembered each other from Tassajara, but I don't know why, because I was always fraternizing with guests and got to know everybody who
Right.
came. I don't know why I didn't at that time. You know, but I have no memory of going to his room or meeting him or anything. Maybe we said
Uh-huh.
hello or something, but later I did because of Bob.
I had some really precious encounters with both of them. I was just bopping along, on the street coming home to Page Street, and just, you know, unconsciously or unself-consciously, just burst in the door, and there are Roshi and Trungpa Rinpoche sitting at the front table.
Huh.
And again, and so I immediately just stopped and took it in. Again, Roshi was like just kind of sweetly looking down, playing with a pencil, rolling it around a little bit on the table, and Trungpa Rinpoche was turned towards him just with this total, incredible focus of love.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was, it's very incredible. And so, and then I was really moved by the way Trungpa Rinpoche was at the funeral.
Was what?
How he was when he was at the funeral.
Oh, at the
For
funeral.
Roshi.
Yeah.
Yeah. To my perception was that he was just completely just a naked, grieving human being, and by contrast, because of how he was manifesting, I could see that, like all the visiting dignitaries and whatever, that even they may have been deeply moved, and I could see the way in which they were holding on to some ego idea because of having him there as a contrast. He was like, he was manifesting the teachings about being naked, and it was very deeply moving, and so I knew I would go study with him once Roshi was gone.
So that was, the funeral was, December 71.
Yeah.
When did you go to Boulder? Or did you go to Boulder right away? Or did you start off in San Francisco?
I was still in San Francisco a couple of months. I got an interview with Trungpa Rinpoche, and he said, go to Boulder. I didn't know if he would, but he said, go to Boulder. So very quickly I went to Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, again, very fortunate, I was able to spend a lot of time as his attendant, as many of the Zen students who went did, because compared to all the brand new people, we were the only people that had some sense of how to treat it and care for a teacher. So in the beginning, most of us were the people who were around him.
Yeah.
He taught me how to make tea. Because I would go and wake him up in the morning and get him ready and help him dress and then drive him into work. And one morning he asked me to make him some tea, and I did. And I brought it to him, and he took a sip and got this disgusted look on his face, and he said, "Did you boil the water for this?" And I said, "No, I just got it really hot. I didn't know you're supposed to boil water to make tea." So that's how I learned how to make tea.
So, all right, I drink a lot of tea. Tell me what type of tea he liked and how he liked it.
It was probably some fancy black British tea.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, like English breakfast.
Yeah, some Darjeeling, something.
If he's really into it, he might have gotten some Assam. I had Katrina bring me back 2 kilos of Assam from America.
Yeah, Assam, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I can get good tea here. There's some good tea grown
Oh,
in
yeah,
Indonesia.
yeah, I
Uh,
would think, yeah.
there's some bad tea grown here too. And still, the best green tea is from Japan.
Uh-huh.
And whenever I see some, I buy. I greedily buy as much as I can. Um, but I drink more black tea. Uh, so, uh, so anything more to report on the Boulder? Like you went out and all right, you went there in like '72, and
Yeah, and I started attending Rinpoche and I was doing Triple Gem with Bob.
oh yeah, Bob. Oh, you were helping Bob with his
Yeah,
gym business. Oh
yeah,
God,
yeah.
how was that?
I travel. Well, in the beginning it was great until he kind of got a little too crooked for his own good.
Yeah, he had the FBI come bust him.
but uh, but in the beginning, I had this huge territory from uh, maybe west of Ohio, but Ohio and going east to New York, and I would just travel around and go to jewelry stores and jewelry makers, all kinds of people wherever I thought I could sell gemstones, and I would sell gemstones, and it was great. I was making a good living, meeting interesting people. Gemstones were interesting. It was just before the end of trust, just before it got perverted. Kind of like when, I don't know when you got to Haight-Ashbury, but I was there, the summer of love, just before the hard drugs came in and perverted everything. It's kind of like that.
Oh, uh-huh. Uh-huh. Hey, Bob listens to these. He'll listen to this. Uh,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
think probably will. And I want to get him on a podcast too, of course. He could be great.
Yeah, of course. That would be great if you'd do it.
He'll do it.
So good. He I went to New York with him to do buys,
Yeah.
and I think uh, I think because he trusted me and he knew it would be too dangerous to be on his own. With having wads of tens of thousands of dollars on his person going in and buying
Yeah.
gemstones. And, as you know, he's a pretty sharp cookie. I mean, he would go into these guys, very seasoned gem people and diamond people, and they would marvel at his perception and intelligence and the way he would keep track. Like he would look at all kinds of different little packages of stones, different grades, different costs, and it would look like it was getting totally disorganized, but he never lost track. And I remember this one guy just stopped and looked at him and says, but, that's pretty incredible that you're keeping track of all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was able to get good deals. And then, of course, he knew how to mark them up very high when he would turn around and sell them to other people.
Yeah. I saw him do
And,
that with water beds.
yes,
Jesus.
I also sold water beds with him. That was
No,
good.
you didn't. In San Francisco,
Yeah.
near Ghirardelli or somewhere like there.
I worked in the store on not Fillmore, on where the fuck did I work? Anyway, within a couple of months, we had like 11 stores.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I mean, this guy who started it, he was a real con man and crook, and he knew how to, manipulate people and get what he wanted. He had a lot of ambition. I was standing on the street with him, a couple of other of us, and we're just talking, hanging out, talking. This guy comes up to us and says, what the heck was his name? I forget his name.
Wait, I didn't hear that. What? He said what?
I said, I forget his name now, the owner. I forget his name, but let's say his name was Peter. And this guy walks up and says, Peter James, and he immediately turns around and says, yeah. And then he sees the guy has a piece of paper in his hand. He says, well, no, I'm not really Peter, but I'm his manager. What can I do for you? He immediately recognized the guy was a service person. And so he immediately says, I'm not,
Yeah. Yeah.
very quick on his feet.
Well, I've had somebody give me say the "you've been served" thing for somebody else. If he said he was his manager, I'm surprised he could get away with that.
Yeah, I don't know why that worked. Maybe he didn't say he was his manager, but anyway, the guy didn't serve him.
Yeah. Well, I also, every place has different rules and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, let's listen. We could talk all night about Bob, and
yeah.
I think we need to move back to Trungpa, Boulder. You got there in '72 and you left in '86. 72.
Right.
14 years.
Yeah.
When I went to Boulder, you were the best person to visit. I mean, I'd stay with Bob, and but Bob was tended to be very busy taking care of Trungpa, and that made him sort of distracted. And sometimes we'd have fun and stuff, but basically he was busy. But the two people who really were, aside from Bob, were the two other people who were really generous with their time were you and Alan Marlowe. I mean, I got there, and I was in Alan's place, and good Lord, yeah, I used his toilet, and there was this book there on the back of the toilet called Fist, and it had.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. Right. And I didn't know about fist fucking.
Oh.
And that was I looked at it and it was just pictures of two men, one page after another. And I was just, wow. To me, it was just like some sideshow thing. Well, then I learned, that, Alan was really into it and like it was a big deal. But anyway, aside from that, Alan was always into the most extreme stuff. He says, oh, well, you've come to Boulder and you have many friends here. Let's throw a party. How about tomorrow night? All right. Now, what shall we have? I'll get some Everclear. We'll have an Everclear punch. And all right, let's start making a list. And the next night there's 30 people there I know. Because there were so many people from the Zen Center there, and I'd gotten to know some other people through other things. So it was really incredible. And yeah. And
he was something.
Yeah, he was. I'm in touch with Jeannie now.
I am a little bit too on Facebook every now and then.
Yeah. Oh, Jeannie and I had a talk for an hour and a half the other day. It's great. We just went right back to where we were, being buddies.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I could tell you more, but I won't at this time. She is really doing well. And I'm going to do a podcast with her. I'm just very, very pleased and impressed with how she's evolved. And that's not always true with people, as you well know.
Right.
She's
married, isn't she, or has a partner, long-term partner?
She has a long-term partner, but it's not a romantic relationship, and she lives with him in Idaho. And just a really nice situation. And she was living with him in San Francisco, and when he left, he said, "Come with me if you want," and so she did. Been there
Good.
quite a while. Yeah.
Good.
Um, and she's close with everybody in her family, you know. Uh,
Oh yeah,
yeah. And
those are a bunch of great kids.
yeah, yeah. And her mother, Diane DePrima is, wow, she's still going.
She's still cooking. Wow, man.
She's got like Parkinson's, but I, she, she is, she is really tough, but she's still going. Um, in her, God, she must be 83 or 4 now or something. But anyway, all right, let's move away from our mutual friends and back to, all right,
Okay.
you're in Boulder. Uh, and uh, so anything else to say about the scene there? Well, how did you like the scene there in Boulder?
I was I was very happy in the scene, uh, and I didn't have the problem that some did of not knowing when to quit. In terms of it's okay to do whatever you want because Trungpa Rinpoche does it.
Yeah,
Drink. So
yeah,
I didn't have. A lot of people hurt themselves because they didn't maintain any kind of sensibility about that. And there's a lot of stories you probably heard of someone asking him, "So Rinpoche, you're our teacher, and we're supposed to follow our teacher, and you drink and smoke and sleep around with all these women. So are we supposed to do that?" And he said, "God, no, that'll be suicidal if you try to imitate me."
that's right.
But people didn't listen.
Yeah, a lot of, it's especially with what happened with Ursula Tensing and stuff.
Yeah,
I, and various things. The community settled down. They're having a bigger problem now than they had
I
then.
know. That's just really terrible. It's so sad. It's so destructive. It's
You
just
know,
unbelievable.
yeah. We can't really get into the details of that, and
Right.
I haven't really followed the details except, and I hope there are some friends of mine who had this happen to them. I am never upset when uh, spiritual communities or institutions crash because of scandals or anything like that. I find it a wake up call. It's
Exactly.
time to
Yeah.
evolve and grow and realize in many cases that you've sort of gotten into living with a lie or you're not being the best you can be and that sort of thing. So
Right.
I have none of it bothers me. Um, I mean, some of the worst behavior I've seen actually is in the way people react to it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. There's that side of it too.
uh,
Yeah.
but I'm awfully, uh, I'm a libertine in spirit, not in action anymore. but uh, uh, but uh, a lot of stuff just doesn't bother me. You know,
Uh-huh.
I said, well, you're
Uh-huh.
responsible for yourself. Is it with there's more encouragement in the Tibetan scene there to think of the teacher as perfect and everything is teaching than there was at Zen Center. The Zen Center was a lot more skeptical, and you know what I mean? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
well, let's take, for instance, the example of when I was visiting there during the Vajra Regent's birthday. And I stayed with Bob first. I was there for a while, for like 2 weeks. And I stayed with Bob first, and then I stayed with you. And went to I think I went with Bob to the or maybe I went with you, but he made sure I had to have shoes, and I had no shoes. Uh, really into the dress code. and and the first night of the Vajra Regent's birthday weekend, or 2 days, was the going to Denver to that show in the auditorium where they had like flown in Chinese dancers and the symphony or some symphonic music,
man. Yeah.
and various sort of classical and classy, and it ended with the high monkey mucks of the Shambhala organization up on the stage singing the national anthem of Shambhala.
Right.
And they were like dressed like with sashes diagonally across them, like in some sort of British royalty thing. And I think I was sitting with you, and I turned to you and I said, the next thing we're going to see them with military medals and stuff on them. And that happened the next day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Out at Rocky Flats.
Right. I couldn't go there. I mean, I was initially a guard. Bob even said he put me in the register somehow that I was the first Kasum. And but when it started getting more and more elaborate that way, and I just couldn't go with it.
Yeah, they got a cannon. They got a cannon, right?
Yeah.
Well, the next day was it was this like a whole carnival. I don't know what you call it, out at Rocky Flats. And I went with you out there, and I had stayed up the whole night writing a song for the Vajra Regent's birthday. And you spoke to him and Rinpoche about getting me in on the entertainment that night. Now maybe that's the night. I think that's the night Alan Marlowe had a theatrical thing going. So anyway, but just to go before. In fact, I've written this all up. Incidentally, I wrote a whole big piece about this. Oh yeah, man, it's got a lot of details. There was a beer tent, right? And so I went and got some beer, and there was a Go tournament, and Nils had never played Go, and he won the tournament.
Yeah.
And Nils was so brilliant. You were talking about Bob with the Stones. Nils was like that with a lot of things. He had, he was a brilliant carpenter, designer, the painter, all sorts of things. But he had this amazing mind, and he figured out Go and won the tournament. So, there's all these people there mulling around, all these different things happening. There's Tibetan kite flighting with the overture of 1812 being piped out in over a big sound system like something the Grateful Dead might have suggested, and then there comes this procession, and leading it was Jerry Grinelli playing the drum, and then these like two show horses with people in tuxedos riding it, and then a carriage with Trungpa and Ursel Tenzing, the Vajra regent, dressed in military uniforms with medals, like khaki uniforms, and cats. And there were Tibetan horns on the side, and they were like smiling and waving like they were royalty. And there were people just lined up on both sides, I doing whatever you do, I mean, I was
Yeah.
at one thing where Trungpa spoke, where he comes, he made everybody wait an hour or two, as usual.
Of course. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then he comes in, dancing in with Allen Ginsberg, holding hands, goes up and announces that he says, "I have just had my first homosexual experience."
Wow.
Did you ever hear of that?
I didn't ever hear that.
Yeah. And all right, but anyway, they go up there and then they sit on a dais with the Queen Mother and Diana. What would she call it? Princess Diana?
Uh-huh.
All right. And they're all on a diet. And then I'm over there getting something. And I'll tell you one experience I have. Aside from you and Nils, nobody would pay attention to me, which was all right. I didn't care. But the sort of pecking order I noticed socially there was number one is closeness to Rinpoche.
Sure, of course.
Number two is how much money you make. And number three was how much sex you were having with whom.
Right.
And however, I'm not really putting it down. People would go from Zen Center who were not functioning that well, not doing that well, didn't have a good self-image, would go there and they'd be selling real estate and buying a house,
Right.
So, it was very, very helpful to a lot of people. The scene was not something I would feel comfortable living with. And what happened was I was standing there, and Trungpa got down off his dais and came over and said hello to me. And we talked for a little while. He asked if I'd come to a seminary and lead meditation. And I said, I'd love to. It'd be great, but I don't think I can. And I'm pretty close with Dick Baker. And he said, I have no trouble with Dick Baker. I said, I know. Well, I said, I just don't think, I just didn't want to be part of that scene. I've always regretted that a little because it would have been a trip. But anyway, after he went back up on the dais, I want to tell you, people related to me totally differently from that point on.
Day.
I was like, wow, there's David. Trungpa came off. But anyway, so that night I sang that song, and the whole way I got into talking about this was we're talking about the difference between Zen Center and there. I said, Zen Center people can be sacrilegious,
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody could be a student at Zen Center and say, well, Roshi's not really my teacher. I don't understand. I like Katagiri. Yeah. Or Del Carlson would say, well, I'm here for the Sangha,
Right.
And there was room for anybody. And there was, not a big a deal. Well, the song I sang for the Regent was actually pretty nice, but it was making fun of him, Regent, I've heard a lot about you, and I know you've got to, Regent, I know you've got a fine mustache. I heard a lot about you from folks talking behind your back. And then the chorus was, happy birthday, Regent, happy birthday to you. And I got everybody singing it, and I remembered the whole thing. I spent half the day there, working on it. And see, I don't like to memorize songs and sing. I like to read them. I don't like to perform, really. But it really blew everybody's mind. And the next day, I had people coming up to me saying one of two things. Either saying, that was the rudest thing I ever saw in my life. How you could have, just berating me. How you could have, blah, 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 blah. And then the next person would be, oh, my God, that was the greatest thing I ever heard in my life. And really, it was just one or the other. And then somebody came up and said, the children were singing your song in the school today. And then like a few years later, I was in Boulder, and I went and I met with Ursel Tensing. And you know what he did when I met with him?
No.
He sang the chorus to me.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, that was cool. Anyway, I could talk to you more about him and all that and people I knew back there, but some other time. I think I'll back off of that.
Okay.
But yeah, it just got me going remembering it. So let's get back to this is your podcast, not mine. Let's get back to, except I experienced a lot of this stuff with you. Bob Halpern said, well, David, you got to understand, this isn't like the Zen Center. It's really unusual for someone to sort of pop the bubble like that. Bob was sort of politically astute in some ways.
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know. Anyway, yeah. So you got more to say about that place, and how did it work out for you there?
Well, I had I don't really understand, but at some point I had just this powerful intention to get married, to marry Robin. Like we met at seminary in '75, and at our first meeting, she just said some nasty things and walked out of the room.
To you?
Yeah, to me. And but it just was nothing, meant nothing to me. Like the first 2 weeks was meditation, and so I would meditate during the day, and then I'd drink at night, and then after a while, it got you. I'm sure you know this. After a while, it just got to be an even drunk all the 24 hours a day. But the meditating kind of regulated the drinking, and
yeah.
As everyone else, I was sleeping with a different person every night, and then and then we got hooked up at a party, and something happened. I just didn't sleep with anybody else, and we very quickly got arrangements and permission to move in together, and so we lived together the whole seminary.
Oh my God!
And then at the end, she was coming from Vermont, Tail of the Tiger, and I was from Boulder, and so I said, well, I have to go back to Boulder for about a week to get some things in order, and then I'm going to come get you, and we're going to get married. And I don't exactly remember her response. It wasn't 100%, but it also wasn't that ambivalent that I paused. So anyway, I went to Vermont, to Tail of the Tiger, and I walked in, and I go to the registration desk, and hi, who are you? What's your name? What are you doing here? And I says, hi, I'm from Boulder. I'm Jack Elias, and I've come here to get Robin. We're going to get married. Not realizing that I instantly alienated most of the place, because I had not been aware the whole time at seminary that she had a boyfriend there for 2 years. She was in this 2-year relationship.
And she hadn't told you, though. She hadn't told you.
And here I come, and she hadn't told me, so I come, oh yeah, I'm taking Robin with me. So all these people that are friends with him immediately don't like me. And plus Rinpoche gently tried to persuade me against it, but I wouldn't listen. I just, like I said, it was something just in me, moving me, and I had no jealousy. I was unobstructed in that regard. Like we were getting into bed one night, and there was a knock on the door, and this person says, Robin Rinpoche's inviting you to come to his house for dinner. And so she goes and never comes back. And I know that David, her boyfriend, he's also going to be there. So she comes back in the morning, and my genuine response was just to joyfully jump out of bed and hug her, even though I knew she had been sleeping with this guy. And I was kind of marveling at myself that I didn't have any.
How did you know she wasn't sleeping with Rinpoche?
Because she told me.
All right.
And she also, Rinpoche was meeting with them and being encouraging to them. And I went up to him after a talk and I said, I want equal time. And he says, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're talking to David and you're talking to Robin, and so I'd like equal time. And he says, well, we'll see, blah, blah, blah. And I says, well, I'm not leaving. And he just looked me in the eye. He says, so what? So what? And I said, well, I just want you to know. And then I was attending him. We were going up some stairs, and he started singing, Jack and Jill went up the hill, and then trailed off. And so he kept giving me little, and another time it was more on the seductive vein. He says, I was talking about getting together with Robin, and he says, I have much better plans for you if you stay single. But I didn't listen, and we got, the real thing that was the tipping point is that she got pregnant, and we didn't know if it was David's or mine, and I said, I don't care.
Yeah.
I said, I just want you to have the baby. You don't even have to be with me, but don't get an abortion, have this baby. And he wasn't in that kind of place, and so she chose to leave with me.
Oh, yeah. Well, did you ever do a gene test or what would you...
No, it was Sarah. She was obviously my child.
Uh-huh.
So I think maybe it was just the karma that we had with our kids, because every time we both were very aware of her presence. Like every time it was time for her to get pregnant, we're aware somebody's there wanting to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's why just a karmic thing had to be fulfilled.
Yeah. Well,
so it was a trip.
Yeah, you're an especially sensitive person. I've experienced that. I mean, you're a sensitive person the way, I don't mean sensitive the way it's usually used. There's some people who are psychics, like that say, well, I'm not really a psychic, I'm a sensitive.
Right.
That's what Rand says in Santa Fe. That's the way I met it. All right. So how did things evolve? And so what year did you get married?
We got married in, let's see, when was this? 76. We got married in 76. And February. Now it's coming back to me. You have a much better memory of that time than I do. I can tell just by listening to you talk about it. But we got married at her dad's place in New York, and it was really sweet. A lot of people came. Buddhist friends came. Steve Brown came.
Oh my gosh.
Wendy Ferraris came. It was really sweet. And then a couple of relatives came. My dad came. He made an effort to come. That was very touching. And so it was a great, very spur of the moment, spontaneous wedding. And then we went back to Boulder. And so now that I'm married and working, I knew it would happen. I gave up my kind of favored position in terms of being able to be close to Rinpoche. But I very consciously recognized that and chose the path.
But at some point, then you all left. Did you leave? Let's see. I'm trying to think. When did Rinpoche died? Well, before he died, he got sort of out of it a little. He was.
Oh yeah.
So, Uh, you left in '86.
Yeah.
How was he then?
He was in and out of, whatever he was doing. Like, I don't remember if he characterized it this way or somebody else did. It was like he was being called by the dakinis, and it's like he spent a lot of time not really in his body, you might say, or something. But he could come back. He could, he wasn't spaced out. He could come back. And so he was kind of in that phase when Sarah got sick and we were going to leave. And when we found out, it was August 15th when we found out, and he was on the land. And so they advised us not to go there because that was another additional 1,000 feet of elevation. So we couldn't go see Trungpa Rinpoche, but he arranged for us to have family interviews with several lamas who were in town. We got private interview with Tai Situ Rinpoche and with Kempo Rinpoche, somebody else too, I forget now. But so we got lots of blessings before we left.
So you left on good terms with the community and with Rinpoche and everything, but it was time to go.
Oh yeah, they were very sweet to us. They ushered us off very sweetly.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Well, now you got to Boulder through Zen Center. How did you get to Zen Center?
Oh, okay. So I was in my first year of school in Connecticut. I was at Wesleyan University, and I don't remember where or how, but I found this little book. I think it attracted me because it was like a little pocketbook, and it was Zen Flesh, Zen Bones.
Oh yeah, great book.
Yeah,
came out
so
like
I took it to my
really early, like 58 or
yeah.
something. I don't remember when it came out.
Yeah, because this is like 65. And so I took it to my room. I sat on my bed, and I read maybe one or two of the koans, and my heart just exploded. And I just started literally dancing around the room and realizing I'm home. And then realizing all these 18 years, I've had kind of a background sadness, realizing I wasn't home. And now I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
So, but at that time there were maybe 3 books on Zen Buddhism. So I read those. I read, it was mainly D.T. Suzuki.
Right.
And I let my friends know I had this interest, but I didn't know where to go with it. It was just reading. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of my sophomore year, I took my first acid trip.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the kind of acid trip where at a certain point you realize it's not an acid trip, it's actually reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really complete, incredible experience. And I took it with my roommate. And before I took it, I invoked grace. And so I had this incredible experience. This is my idea. He had a horrible experience because he was dwelling in this grief about breaking up with his girlfriend at high school before he came to college. So
he shouldn't have taken it then. Yeah.
Exactly. It just intensifies where you're at. And so I didn't realize that until afterward. I thought he was having the kind of trip I was having. But anyway, the next day, when I'm still kind of just in this state of bliss and marveling, this guy walks up to me. In fact, it was the guy who provided the acid. He walks up to me and he hands me this brochure. He said, "You might be interested in this." And it was Tassajara brochure, first Zen monastery opening in America.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, I was there. And I wrote a letter. Immediately wrote a letter applying, but I didn't wait for an answer. I just took off, and I walked in, and I think you did this.
You walked into wait. You walked into Tassajara?
No, I walked into the Soto Center.
Oh, you walked into Sokoji.
Yeah, and
All right.
I think you had this similar experience if I read in something you wrote. I walked in, opened the door to the office, and Katagiri's right there.
Yeah, I met Katagiri first.
Yeah, so I start talking to him, but he doesn't understand a word I'm saying. But I was like immediately focused on him, talking to him, and I didn't notice that the whole rest of the room, there's this big table and a bunch of people, and so very quickly Dick Baker, who's at the head of the table, said, he can't really understand you, and come on up here and let's talk to you. And so I went and sat next to him, and he said, what's going on? I said, I had my backpack on my back, and I said, well, I'm coming to go to Tassajara. And he says, you can't, it's full. And I just immediately got crestfallen. He says, well, yeah, but just, tell us, what's your name? And blah, blah, blah. I says, well, my name's Jack Elias. And he said, Jack Elias, I think, and he pointed to Yvonne. He says, Yvonne, check the file. She went and checked the file, and I had been approved. So I was going.
Yeah, you're in the picture. I have I have it on Cuke.com, right there on the homepage, and I also have it on Cuke Audio, Podbean. The picture, it's after the first practice period. It's in the fall, and you're in there. There you are. You're next to Loring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're between Loring and Ed Brown, and right above me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what happened is I went there shortly thereafter, and and by the way, just as an aside, Yvonne later on told me that she had voiced concern to Dick Baker that maybe people won't come, and he said, no, they'll come. You'll see. People are gonna show up with the backpacks on their back. And she said I was the first person to show up with the backpack on her back that she saw.
That's good.
It was very sweet. And so anyway, I went down there. I was there probably 2 weeks. And I got a call from my dad that my mom had been diagnosed with terminal colon cancer. So I left and went back home and helped him take care of her while she died a horrible death. And then after,
that's how my father died.
Yeah, it's horrible, especially when they didn't have the kind of drugs they have now to help people.
Yeah, he didn't take drugs.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That would be something.
I was 11, so I just knew he was dying. We didn't really talk about it. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. So she died just around Christmas time, so I went, after the holiday, I went back to Wesleyan, and I walked in to see a professor friend of mine, and he just looked at me and he says, you look terrible, you should take some time off. So I went back to Zen Center, and I'm still on my time off.
So that picture that you're in, that was in the fall, after the first practice period.
Yeah, I went for the first one, but I left. And then I came back.
Yeah. Okay. That's really something. And then what happened?
Well, then I went back to Zen Center, and that's my joke. He said take some time off, so I went back to Zen Center, and I'm still on my time off. I never went back to school.
That's great.
And so I did a couple of, went back and forth as you did. I did a couple of training periods. I spent a year at Tassajara, pretty much without a break, a couple of breaks, to go into town and stuff. And had a big romance with Margaret there.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, you all were
And
really emotional. I remember that.
yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It was such such a kid.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
And
and she was Diane's best friend, so I was very
yeah, they were
well
best
aware of
friends.
it.
They were best friends. Yeah, they were best friends. Yeah. I
Uh,
went and had an interview with Roshi. Who talked about it and talked about them, and he just says, our some our way is our way is hard for some people, and some people it's very easy. Like he was talking about Diane and Margaret. But
yeah.
on the other hand, she would share with me how he would come up to them and kind of mock, playfully, like pull them apart, like letting them know that they were too attached to each other.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what I write about that in Crooked Cucumber, and there's more online. He said, uh, "Remember, you're two fishes, not
Yeah.
one." Oh yeah, he liked them
Oh
both.
yeah,
He was
God.
very close.
Yeah.
It's especially with Diane because she worked in his garden with him,
Right.
and she'd draw him pictures and show him to him, and he said they were like his granddaughters,
Yeah.
and he couldn't really be a teacher to them because uh, he
Yeah.
thought of them as and uh, anyway, yeah, yeah. So, mm, so I remember. Uh, Now, one thing I remember is you didn't go right away in 1972 to Boulder because
Yeah.
I had been living at Tassara most of the time, almost all the time, since right a couple of months after we bought it until after Suzuki Roshi died, and then in '72 uh, I was work leader in the building, and at some point. Dick Baker uh, in the spring said, "You sure do talk a lot. What do you think it'd be like if you didn't talk?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, why don't you stop right now?" And then I went 6 months without talking.
Right.
I grunted a lot. I remember everybody said it was the loudest vow of silence they'd ever heard.
Right.
But I was the work leader, and I had to organize all sorts of stuff. And I'd have sometimes in the session, I'd have 60 people I had
Right.
to get doing this and that, and I kept a little etch a sketch, and it all worked out great. But you and I were very close then,
I'm starting to
and
remember. Yeah. Yeah.
and all right, you remember me saying that I had experienced how sensitive you were.
Right.
You and I, you, nobody compared with you in understanding what I wanted to say.
Right.
It got to where I didn't have to do anything, and you would just say what I wanted
Right.
to say. We'd have conversations, and you'd be doing both sides. And I hardly had to write or gesture anything with you. You were just totally sensitive in that way. Um, and wow, yeah, I remember that. You and I were very close then.
I remember a little bit of that.
And there were various things happening with you and with me that I will not go into in this public forum.
Yeah, we had various little adventures.
Yeah, and you had some pretty extreme emotional things happening with you. You were going through some stuff, and I had some pretty questionable things happening. And but we both made it. We both made it through that. And
right. You really nailed me once. It was a wonderful gift that I didn't fully appreciate at the time, but it was like a really kind of cutting through thing. We were upstairs at Page Street and talking to Steve Brown, and he was saying how he had broken up with can't remember her name. Her name is Nuna now. on Facebook. She was Bob Halpern's girlfriend, and then she was my girlfriend for a while. So anyway, she was Steve made a comment how he didn't talk to her for 6 months. But anyway, he said he hadn't talked to her for 6 months after they broke up. And I said, God, Steve. And I said, man, I don't know if I said that's terrible, but I was kind of being critical. And you just shot this statement at me. You said, yeah, Jack, well, how long did you stop talking to her for when you broke up with her? And it was like, whoa, that's right. So it was.
Well, I apologize if I was rude.
No, that was like burst my little hypocritical bubble.
Wow.
Oh, God.
But at some point you left. But you were there quite a bit of that.
Yeah,
that year.
I think I was there several months because we were hanging out and I was doing the waterbed thing.
Oh yeah, with Bob.
And then so maybe it wasn't until the fall of '72. But
yeah, I think it might not have been till the fall. That was quite a year.
Yeah.
I'd been living in a monastery for 5 years, and I did not exercise the best judgment that year. But you know what? It was fun, and I went to Zazen, and I sat the sessions, and I did my job.
Yeah.
And, Dick Baker was extremely tolerant of me and understanding, and we didn't have a problem. He would just tell me that, I was being uncool and it didn't look good.
Right.
But, he and I are still close.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah, I'm in touch with him a lot.
Yeah,
he's doing great.
I felt
great.
close to him all the way through. I mean, I left before there was all the problems, so I never had any problem in that regard. But
that was 11 years after.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I guess it started maybe 10 years after you left.
Yeah. I mean, I felt close to him.
Yeah.
All the way through, and we would have a good connection, and but the problem that happened. It wasn't like intentional. It was like at the end of the funeral, I was going outside. He was already outside. Trungpa Rinpoche was coming up the steps, and I was going outside. And as soon as Dick saw me, he immediately turned towards me and bowed. He was in a conversation. He immediately turned and bowed to me, but I bowed to Trungpa Rinpoche. And I think that really hurt his feelings or offended him or something. And that's pretty much the last interaction I ever had with him. But I had no ill will. It's just I had this strong connection to Trungpa Rinpoche.
Oh, well, that's a case of unforgivable discrimination. Yeah. Well, that's good. He and Trungpa were talking. Yeah. They didn't have good chemistry. But that sort of thing's normal.
Yeah.
All the things that happen, you think, oh, it's Buddhism. People should all be, getting along and everything. Nah, this is just normal human behavior.
Right.
Just read about the history of any groups or, go back and read about Dogen, what was happening in his time and everything.
Yeah.
People are always having trouble with each other. And we're doing pretty good right now. I don't think the human race has long to go at the rate we're going.
Yeah, really.
I've been a real pessimistic person about the survivability of the human race ever since. Well, actually, it started in high school. Rachel Carlson's book,
right.
and
How about your friend?
I was aware of animals becoming extinct then, but I was raised with a cosmic view, so I sort of maybe had almost like a Hindu way of seeing it, like worlds come and go.
They come and go. So your friend, older man who is the psychic, did he ever comment on that? His worldview?
Fred Kimball?
Yeah, did he ever talk about the...
Yeah, Fred said he couldn't read the world.
Oh, okay.
He read people.
Yeah.
He said he tried to read the world, and he said, there's people who've done it, but he said he can't read the world. So he didn't do that. I remember once I asked him, he's so good, like if I asked him, tell me about Jack, he'd give me a really good psychic reading on you. Anybody I knew, just incredible.
Wow.
With details, with shocking details, right?
Yeah.
I asked him once, I was around Dallas when Kennedy was killed. That was always a big deal to me. And I had things happen around that were upsetting, beforehand and afterwards. And I asked him once, I said, hey, Fred, who killed Jack? And he looked at me and said, you don't know that person. You didn't know that person. I can't read that.
Oh. Huh.
Well, maybe it's time we called it quits.
Yeah, I think we...
But
we did it for this time.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything you'd like to go out on?
Well, I just want to thank you for jogging my memory about the time you spent with me in Boulder. You, like I said, you're remembering a lot of things better than I am. So that's great to be able to recapture some of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, I've written a great deal about that, various things like that about. But I can remember more details now. Maybe I'll go back and add more to it. But really, with writing, it's better to take things out than add things.
Okay. Well, maybe if we remember some more stuff, we could do it again.
Okay, Jack. Well, really great talking with you.
Okay, man. Good time to you too. Yeah.
And it's my bedtime now, and it's time for you to get going for the day. Very good.
Okay, man.
Take care. That was fun.
Take care.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jack Elias. You can learn more about Jack by going to findingtruemagic.com. He's also got a book of that name. You can go to cuke.com and write Jack Elias, or just Elias in the site search box, and read an interview with him there. There'll be more about Shunryu Suzuki and the Zen Center in that. And who knows? I can't remember what there is there. So, very good. After the goodbye, which I'm just getting ready to say, I'm going to put on that song I wrote for the Vajra regent, Ursula Tensing, that I mentioned at that festival at Rocky Flats outside of Boulder. Oh, God, when was that? Like, I don't know, 1982 or something. Oh, I can tell you. I can just look at the song. June 1978. So that's when I wrote that. When I got back to Bolinas, where I was living, then I recorded it just on a cheap little system. I recorded all my songs after I wrote them, so I'd just be able to remember them, have a record of them. If you want to read the words to it, just go to diffusermusic.com, and it's got a song page. So up there near the top, there's a link for song pages, and you'll see their Happy Birthday Regent. So, this has been a Cuke audio phone chat. Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to see us keep going, we'd appreciate you making a little contribution to help us along. Just go to cuke.com, hit the donate button, and it's real easy to do. It's all self-explanatory there. You can send a check, make a PayPal donation, or become a PayPal subscriber for as little as $1 a month. Real easy to do. And you'll find it a rewarding experience. So until next time, this is DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archive, wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.
Happy birthday, Regent. Happy birthday to you, to you, sir. I came to these mountains a few days ago, to this land of red gold, and soon it's your birthday, I was told. I knew that much, but not how old. So lacking in this knowledge yet I drew a temporal gift, this song for you. A temporal gift, this song for you. A temporal gift, this song for you. Happy birthday, Regent. Happy birthday to you. I come from a city out there by the sea, San Francisco on my knee. Studied with Shunryu, Suzuki, a foreign man of just 5 feet. You've got his picture on your altar too. Now that's another thing that I know about you. That's another thing that I know about you. That's another thing that I know about you. Regent, I've seen your visual pictures and I know you've got a fine mustache. Regent, and I've heard a bit about you from these folks talking behind your back. Now they say wonderful things, but that's not why I sing. I sing out of respect and don't want to neglect something outside of sect, and can think of nothing better to do than sing happy birthday to you. met your father's sage about 10 years back. Meeting him was like stepping on a deck. Now he's named your regent, that's a matter of fact. To me you were the regent when I heard that. I don't know what regents are, what they do, but that's all I need to know, so it's easy to wish you. That's all I need to know, so it's easy to wish you. That's all I need to know, so it's easy to wish you. Happy birthday, Regent. Happy birthday to you. Regent, now what they say about us is true, and then some more. Regent, well that's just tough noogies, baby, but I ain't into even the score. So whoever you are, I came here in my car to wish you games under par. From demons afar, if I wore a hat I'd dip it, if I had a date I'd skip it, to sing happy birthday. Happy birthday, Regent. Happy birthday to you, sir. Regent Ornella's live in the tempo and kicking my heels and go do-do-do. Regent, now I'll tear off my body so I can celebrate this day with you. For I cannot express with a no or a yes, or a birth or a death, my esteem of your breath. I need no knowledge, but I have passion up the kazoo. Sings happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Regent. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.